Good morning to the viewing public in-house and on social media. Good morning to the media present. Welcome. Before we address the purpose of this press conference, I want to acknowledge a tragic event that occurred yesterday. A young student, Michael Okubusa of Scarborough Secondary School, collapsed during a basketball game versus Bishop's High School at Montgomery yesterday. And unfortunately, he passed away. On behalf of the Innovative Democratic Alliance and myself, I want to extend the deepest condolences to the family, the school community, teammates, and everyone grieving this loss. Moments like these remind us of the fragility of life and our duty as individuals and the collective also to live each day in fullness with the understanding that we only pass this way once. Our thoughts are with the parents, those parents who sent their child out and never expected this outcome. We stand with you. I stand with you as a mother in your grief and extend our support in any way possible. Thank you. Following the recent Tobago House of Assembly elections, our organization has made a deliberate decision. Although we were not elected to seats in the Assembly, we will operate as an authorized opposition outside of the Tobago House of Assembly. This decision is not motivated by our disappointment or even protest. It is predicated in responsibility. Representation and accountability do not always require a seat in the House. They exist wherever citizens' voices are heard and policies are examined. Our role is to monitor, question, and ensure that government actions reflect the needs and the interests of all Tobagonians. The context we are raising, or the concerns we are raising today, come from the first sitting of the new House that was held on Thursday, January 22nd, following the elections on January 12th. At that sitting, several motions were brought forward and passed immediately, including Motion 2, which focused on scheduling flexibility, and Motion 4 and 5, which focused on petition thresholds. Because there was no formal opposition in the Assembly, there was no opportunity for debate or discussion, and therefore citizens' voices could not be reflected in the process and questions could not be raised before these rules were approved. This procedural highlights the reality and the urgency of our work as an authorized opposition outside of the House to ensure that transparency, accountability, and public participation are not ignored. Motion 2 proposed that there be an amendment to Standing Order 17, which, according to the motion, governs the scheduling of Assembly sittings. The amendment allows the Assembly to meet as often as its business requires and to determine the duration of citizens by majority votes. While the goal that was stated is flexibility, this raises concerns about public access and the predictability. According to Standing Order 16, not 17, of the current Tobago House of Assembly Standing Order Book, meetings occur on a fixed schedule, the fourth Thursday of every month, allowing citizens and the media to plan attendance, coverage, and the participation. With the new flexibility, the public may no longer be able to plan or engage meaningfully. Media coverage becomes unpredictable. And in a House without opposition, this flexibility may function less as operational efficiency and more as control over access and the timing. The Assembly must balance operational flexibility with the public right to predictable, transparent proceedings. Let me say that again. The Assembly must balance operational flexibility with the public right to predictable, transparent proceedings. We already note that we are in the first week of February, and there is no date announced for this month's sitting, and carnival activities are at their height in the next week coming. Looking at motion 4 and 5, motion 4 and 5 raises the thresholds for citizens' participation, right? Citizen petition, rather. It moves it from 1 signature to 100 signatures for a formal response from the House, and from 1 signature to 400 signatures to trigger a debate. Previously, a single citizen could have brought a petition to the House, and this is in the standing order book. A single citizen could have brought a petition to the House, but under the new thresholds, citizens must now mobilize hundreds of signatures, which in practice makes it extremely difficult for individuals or even small groups to be heard, especially now where there is no opposition in the House. Any attempt to revisit or challenge these motions now requires the same large-scale mobilization, making public engagement significantly more onerous. While the stated goal is operational efficiency, the outcome is exclusionary. Citizens deserve the chance to have realistic access to their assembly without disproportionate effort. In summary, these motions, while presented as administrative improvements, these motions, while presented as administrative improvements, have significant implications for citizen access and participation. Therefore, we are advocating for a review of the current arrangement. As an authorized opposition outside of the Assembly, our role, to reiterate, is to monitor government actions and policies, to assess their impact on citizens' daily lives, and to ensure the public understands the consequences of these motions. It's also to advocate for adjustments where necessary to maintain transparency and accountability. Our goal is not confrontational. Our goal is stewardship. It is important that the public must remain central to legislative processes, even when the House lacks formal opposition. In the weeks and months ahead, we will provide analysis and the guidance on Assembly decisions. We will create forums for public discussion and feedback. We will also encourage citizen participation in governance, and we will also advocate for practical, accessible rules that enable the public to engage fully with the legislative process. Stability, transparency, and predictability are not luxuries. They are the necessary foundations for a healthy democracy. I want to thank you, the media and the public, who are here with us today, those in social media. Our work now begins in clarity, responsibility, and public service. At this time, we invite you from the media to forward any comments that you, or questions that you may have. No comments, questions?
Yeah, mm-hmm. Do you believe Tobago would be here in terms of maritime support and supply chain infrastructure? Why or why not?
No, I really think that there needs to be some review in that. This has been happening for many years, many years. And there needs to be something put in place to deal with that. The political leader will come next and she will expand a little bit more on that. But we do need to take a serious look at what we do going forward.
Okay, so that is my next question. That's the option is to prevent destruction of the carbon.
Could you repeat that, please?
The next question will be what contingency plans do you think should be put in place to the carbon restrictions?
Okay. Yes, Dr. Angus will expand a little bit more on that. So, yes. All right. Thank you so much. So since there are no further questions, then we will invite Dr. Angus to come and to address. Thank you.
So a pleasant good day to everyone, and I want to thank all of you for attending this press conference today, whether in person or online, and to also express deepest condolences to the parents, the family, the schoolmates, teachers, friends of Michael. This is a very difficult, even for the strongest, to accept. And so may his soul rest in peace. I want to thank Stacey Herbert for that, description of what we have seen, which is the lockout of the public from the assembly proceedings, and to commend her for that call, that strong call that she is sending out to the administration that they must look at an amendment to the motions that they just posed to ensure that they become more inclusive to the people. And so today, I echo that the Innovative Democratic Alliance is here because once again, Tobago is paying the price for a system that has failed us over and over and over again, and yet we're being asked to endure it quietly. The Seabridge crisis we are experiencing is not an accident. It's not bad luck, and it's definitely not Murphy's Law. It is a systemic failure. And Tobago feels it first, worst, and longest. And I want to put it in perspective for us. In just a short period, Tobago has faced the APT James and the Buku Reef out of service on dry dock, the breakdown of the passenger ferry and the eventual failure of the TNT Spirit over 2 days where it was taken out of commission, a cargo vessel, the Cabo Star, that was withdrawn, and the replacement cargo vessel, the Blue Wave Harmony, failed its maiden test while still being evaluated. Of course, all this results in the overwhelmed air bridge that couldn't absorb the pressure. The thing is, this is not new. When multiple vessels fail at once, it's not coincidence. That is a system without backup, without foresight, and without accountability. And what the reality is on the ground is empty grocery shelves, scarcity of even water, business owners being forced to absorb losses, perishable spoil, smaller trucks hired for multiple additional runs to be made, because remember, the larger cargo boats could take the really large trucks, but you now have to have smaller trucks to accommodate going on the different the services that may be now available. You then have fuel burned, cash drained, with no one asking who's going to absorb those extra costs. But we all know that the truth is eventually the people pay for it. And so the result at this point, when the people have to pay, is the grim reality that right now, food is being rationed at homes across Tobago because of the rising prices. Medicine is being rationed also because pharmacies have not been able to restock. And so these are the real stresses that will not make the headlines. So let's go back to last Sunday, where there were families, including children, the elderly, and the vulnerable, who spent an entire day stuck on a vessel with recurrent problems from as early as 7 o'clock in the morning. Remember, the boat was supposed to come in about 1 o'clock in the day, but it didn't arrive until 3 o'clock, and then further problems with creating disembarkment problems. They didn't get off till about 6 or little after 6 o'clock. Not a drop of water provided. And somehow, persons were expected to manufacture money on this boat to be able to buy food when all these delays came. And by Monday, these are the Tobagonians who went that whole day on the boat, frustrated, tired, no water, no food, no money to buy anything. They are now being told to be patient. They were told to have grace. And our leaders could not see that this wasn't just a mere inconvenience. This was about dignity and indignity. Where was the compassion and customer service for the ordeal that they had to endure? We all understand that things happen. Every leader knows that. But leadership is not judged by whether things happen. Leadership is judged by how urgently, how thoughtfully, and how humanely things are addressed. Instead of compassion for what persons went through as early as 7 o'clock in the morning, waiting to board the boat, and then coming off after 6 o'clock, when they were allowed to leave, all we heard was calls for patience, calls for grace, and explanations about Murphy's Law. Those were the initial utterances that were delivered through a live broadcast from the vessel with the Chief Secretary, visibly holding a cup of tea while passengers just the day before, including children and the elderly, had been stranded without water, without food, without means. So patience does not restock the grocery shelves. Grace does not pay for the business losses. And Murphy's Law does not excuse the absence of contingency plans. And this is where leadership is tested, not in words, but in action. At a minimum, the people of Tobago, all travelers, the visitors, should have heard here clear commitments to ensure that any future vessel being delayed more than 2 hours, at least water should be given to the children and the elderly. Free water and basic care. That is something that could have been said. It showed compassion. It showed your understanding of what people went through and what they endured and what the realities of the economy is today, where people may not have even been able to buy water. So activate an emergency cargo and perishables plan, so grocery shelves do not run empty while waiting for more than 5 days for plans to be put in place. To engage the private sector on temporary relief measures to offset the additional costs businesses were forced to endure and you want to do this to safeguard the rising costs to the public, because we all know the cost will be passed on no matter what. And you want to provide a transparent repair timeline with regular public updates, not reassurance without dates. And so these are not extraordinary demands. They are the basics of responsible governance in a fragile island economy. But the impact does not stop at just the groceries and small businesses. Tobago's ongoing transport instability is also affecting national planning decisions. Because of the unpredictability of the Seabridge, the medium pan finals, an event that traditionally brings pan lovers, visitors, and economic activity to Tobago, it will not be held here this year, but instead in Trinidad. So that decision represents loss of hotel stays, loss of taxi runs, loss of food sales, and lost income for many persons in various other sectors, because the system that connects us cannot be relied on. And yet there has been no acknowledgement of this additional blow to the already flatlined tourism sector. This has not even been mentioned or acknowledged by the administration. All we hear is, well, it gone to Trinidad, but THA is still the major sponsor. How does that acknowledge or even address the realities of the impact of on the people whose livelihoods are affected by this blow? So it cannot be taken lightly and mentioned flippantly as Murphy's Law when transport failures begin to divert the culture, commerce, and even confidence away from Tobago. I mean, the damage is no longer temporary, it becomes structural. So, we are fair. The idea acknowledges that nearly a week after the disruption, short-term measures have finally been put in place, including the introduction of a barge to bring limited relief and the reintroduction of the Buku Reef to the fleet. Any relief is welcome, because Tobagonians have already suffered enough. But relief is not resolution. Murphy's Law has no place in crisis that has occurred in different forms and across generations. When failures repeat over decades and across successive administrations, they are no longer accidents. They are warnings being ignored. So in situations like these, matters cannot be swept under the carpet with platitudes. A full and transparent investigation must be conducted, especially given the blue wave harmony which was a new addition to the fleet and was still being tested when this mishap happened. The public deserves answers. So, the administration between Tobago and Trinidad must be able to say, can evidence of the vessel's international seaworthiness be made public? Was the Blue Wave Harmony appropriate for Trinidad and Tobago's waters? Were technical staff, unions, and frontline users involved in the procurement process? Was adequate training for users provided before testing and deployment of the vessel? And why have we heard primarily from politicians rather than from the technical professionals responsible for safety and operations? What are they not willing to say that the politicians have no problem talking about? Officials have cited winds as the contributing factor. However, no verified wind speed data has been released. Typical January winds in Scarborough are moderate and on their own are rarely enough to cause structural damage during standard berthing operations with skilled staff. That is why we must examine operational preparedness, berthing protocols, vessel handling, and decision-making, and not weather alone. The idea is therefore calling for a public investigative report, one that is explained by technical professionals so that the failures are not repeated. That is how you get in front of Murphy's Law. Tobago's problem has never been a lack of loyalty to Trinidad. Tobago's problem has been too close alignment to party politics and too little defense. When Tobago leaders become overly dependent on national parties and seemingly to take instructions from them, something dangerous happens. It means that Tobago leaders stop demanding upgraded solutions in a timely way. They stop asking the hard questions. They definitely stop the political theatrics of swimming from Tobago to Trinidad. And they start explaining away failure instead of confronting it. At that point, they are no longer defending Tobago to the central government. They are defending the government to Tobago. And time again, we see this happening. So let's all be honest with ourselves, Tobago. No central government administration, none, has ever gotten this inter-island transportation right. None. Where Tobago is concerned, they have not gotten it right. Not under the red, not under the yellow, nor under the yellow-blue. And the result is always the same. When will we acknowledge that when Trinidad sneezes, Tobago don't just catch a cold, we just get pneumonia. So the question before us is whether mistakes were made. It's not whether mistakes were made, but the real question is, why are we relying on a system that has failed Tobago for decades? And more importantly, is it time for Tobago to take greater responsibility for protecting itself? The idea believes Tobago must begin to assume responsibility for its critical logistics and port operations consistent with the 5th schedule under the Tobago House of Assembly Act. This is not a reckless or an emotional statement, but a deliberate one, given all that we have endured and all that we can expect to endure in the future if we do not stop hitting our head against the same wall. So Tobago must become more involved and take responsibility for designing a system of transportation for Tobago that impacts both islands. But it takes into consideration Tobago, which always gets the raw end of the stick. So that design must understand our cargo needs, medical realities, tourism products, and our vulnerabilities. Because of people who cannot control how food, medicine, and goods reach us, we are not truly secure. How many more Murphy's Law accidents we must suffer before we do something about it? Additionally, there has to be more emphasis placed on food security on this island, and even consider engaging the other Caribbean islands about bringing goods and supplies directly to Tobago. So, as we discuss autonomy, we must also be honest that autonomy by itself does not fix incompetence. What fixes failure is competence, transparency, and accountability. And those are the standards the people of Tobago must insist on from anyone and any administration entrusted with leadership. Higher standards should lead to better outcomes, and better systems should make fewer crises. And Tobagonians, we deserve more than being asked to endure failure as a way of life. So this press conference is not about attacking anyone. It is a warning and a responsibility. A warning that Tobago cannot continue absorbing shock after shock in silence, and a responsibility on all of us entrusted with leadership to do better, quickly and thoughtfully, with compassion. As the administration performs its duties, the ball is in our court to be the voice of the people and hold them accountable. So thanks to the persons who have been reaching out and keeping us updated. You are right. Tobago does not need more explanations. Tobago needs protection, especially now. In moments like this, leadership is not about asking people to endure failure, but about reducing harm, sharing burden, and restoring dignity while solutions are being put in place. We challenge the administration to implement some of the solutions we have put forward, and to meet with the business sector to understand the true impact of this crisis and see what can be put in place such that the average citizen will not bear the eventual brunt of this burden. The idea will continue to speak up, ask hard questions, and advocate relentlessly for Tobago's interests, not out of political convenience, but out of necessity. So thank you, and I will take any questions now from the media. I know that the media had a question earlier, so if you can pose that question now, I will take that question.
The question was concerning what contingency plans do you believe should have been in place to prevent the disruptions that should have been in place?
Well, you have to do a proper investigation to understand what the issue was that would have caused that. You want to ensure that when we are switching out vessels, that we understand how many vessels we're putting under strain, because from what we understand, you had both the Buku Reef, the APT James, you removed the Cabo Star, and you brought in a new vessel that you were testing. Was there an opportunity to have them to have it be done closer to the time whilst the Cabo Star was operating, to bring in the new vessel to test its seaworthiness between the islands, and then to ensure that there was a seamless transition from one to the other. And that's why I talk about Tobago taking responsibility for designing that system, because if that was designed in Tobago, the stakeholders here would have known for sure that you cannot afford to have any mishap. And that is what may have been recommended for the smooth transitioning of the process. But you don't have one leave, have it be over a week that it's not available, and then the new one, again, is for another week that is not available due to some level of mishap. Okay? To ensure that whatever vessel is coming in, that the staff, the users are properly trained to ensure that they could guide those who are new persons who may not be accustomed to the terrain of our environment, that they understand the kind of waters we're dealing with. Okay, so thank you so much. I want to also emphasize that the time has come that we don't just treat people as, animals on a ship. That if we are going beyond 2 hours of delay, that persons can be afforded even some water, showing that you understand. Other international airlines provide persons with tickets and extra tickets and these other things. We're not even saying that. Just compassion, some water, some care, so people know that you're still concerned with them. Then is when they will be willing to be patient with you and give you grace, because it's a two-way street. Thank you.